Well, we're really delighted that you guys have spent a part of your afternoon with us. It's our first Hispanic Latino American Town Hall. Hola, bienvenido a todos los que hablan español. Le queremos dar la bienvenida a ustedes porque han sacado parte de su tarde en el día de hoy para acompañarnos. Es nuestro primer evento para el grupo y la comunidad hispana y le damos la bienvenida. We want to welcome you. We are delighted that you're here, and we have a lot of panelists, so we're aiming for a very good time. We want to just make one caveat, please, no filming. So if you can, I'm sure that you have your cell phones, but we would ask that you kindly not film anything here today. Por favor, si tienen sus celulares, solamente le pedimos que no saquen videos. Le pedimos cariñosamente. Now, we're going to be showing a short movie, and we will then get started. Okay, vamos a tener una película muy corta, y entonces vamos a comenzar. We hope that you have a wonderful time. We're very happy that you're here. For those of you who are already aware, Brandon Straka started WalkAway to raise awareness and to encourage people to walk away from the hatred and the fake news of the Democratic Party. So, yes. So we welcome you. Le queremos dar solamente una información que ya como ustedes saben que Brandon Straka comenzó a WalkAway para darle muchas noticias y información al partido, para ellos que quieren irse del Partido Demócrata y irse de las mentiras y del odio y del rencor. So le damos la bienvenida. We give you a lot of welcome, and we want to start with our film, and then we'll have Brandon Straka in our panel. Thank you.
Once upon a time, I was a liberal. Well, to be honest, less than a year ago, I was still a liberal. I became a liberal because I felt I'd found a tribe whose values align with my own. I staunchly reject racism of any kind. I reject the marginalization of any human being based off of their gender or sexual orientation. I reject tyrannical groupthink. I reject a system which allows an ambitious, misinformed, and dogmatic mob to suppress free speech, create false narratives, and apathetically steamroll over the truth. I reject the acceptance of junk science and superstition to advance ideological agendas. I reject hate. These are the reasons why I became a liberal. And these are the same reasons why I am now walking away. For years now, I have watched as the left has devolved into intolerant, inflexible, illogical, hateful, misguided, ill-informed, un-American, hypocritical, menacing, callous, ignorant, narrow-minded, and at times, blatantly fascistic behavior and rhetoric. Liberalism has been co-opted and absorbed by the very characteristics it claims to fight against. For years now, I've watched as people on the left have become anesthetized to their own prejudices and bigotry, and the prejudices and bigotry of those around them who echo their values. I have watched as formerly sensible people who claim to reject racism have come to embrace the principles of universally hating and blaming all of society's problems on all people who have white skin. I have witnessed the irony of advocacy for gender equality morph into blatant hatred and intolerance of men and masculinity. I have seen the once earnest fight for equality for the LGBT community mutate into an illogical demonization of heteronormativity and the push to vilify and attack our conventional concepts of gender. These same self-proclaimed victims of intolerance now turning on the gay community that they attached themselves to advance their agenda, now calling gay people privileged and themselves victims of injustice. I have watched as the left has allowed themselves to become hypnotized by false narratives and conclusions perpetuated by social justice warriors who misrepresent and misconstrue facts, evidence, and events to confirm their own biases that everyone who does not comply with their prejudicial conclusions and follow their orders is a racist, a bigot, a Nazi, a white supremacist, homophobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, misogynistic, and alt-right extremist. And I have watched as they have used these heartless and carelessly assigned labels to intimidate, threaten, bully, silence, attack, unemploy, blacklist, and destroy anybody who dares to fight back. They'll come for me, and then they'll come for you. And worst of all, the Democratic Party and the liberal media has embraced, affirmed, aided, and abetted this cult ideology. In an effort to gain voters and maintain power, the Democratic Party that I once loved has joined forces with the extremist left. The Democratic Party and the liberal media now believe their own ill-gotten conclusions and have ominously decided that they, and only they, know the remedy for society's ills. The left has decided that the solution to problems with race relations in America is more racism. The left believes that attacking, insulting, and dehumanizing one group of people elevates another. The left now believes that there are no boundaries when telling lies, omitting the truth, or misrepresenting facts when telling the news, because their end justifies their means. The left has now decided that its point of view is the only acceptable one, and that suppressing, censoring, and banning open dialogue and debate is virtuous and progressive. The Democratic Party has adopted a deleterious belief system happily and without skepticism, separating people into groups based off of identity and then organizing them into camps of victims and oppressors. If you are a person of color, an LGBT person, a woman, or an American immigrant, the Democratic Party wants you to know that you are a victim and destined to stay that way. They will insist that you are a victim doomed to exist within a system that is rigged against you, that you are a victim of systemic oppression, that you are a victim of your circumstances, and that no amount of hard work or motivational action will ever allow you to overcome your victimhood or the privilege of those around you. This is perhaps the Democratic Party's greatest and most insidious lie. But if you are a minority in America today, the left-wing politicians and the liberal media don't want you to ever discover this lie. So they bombard us with stories designed to reinforce the narrative that you are in danger, that you cannot succeed. They manipulate your fears and concerns by telling you that you're disadvantaged, disempowered, and disposable to everyone except them. They will tell you that you need them. They will tell you that you are only safe under their supervision. They will promise to liberate you from all that chains you. And then they will do absolutely nothing for you. Once upon a time, I was a liberal. But liberalism has changed, and I will no longer be a part of an ideology or political party that represents everything that contradicts my values of unity, equal opportunity, personal empowerment, compassion, and love. So I am walking away. And I encourage all of you to do the same. Walk away.
Vamos a darle la bienvenida. Let us give a warm welcome to Brandon Straka.
You got me? Hey everybody, welcome to the very first WalkAway Hispanic Americans Town Hall. I wanted to start by saying I am so proud and excited to be presenting this panel tonight, or today, sorry, we usually do these in the evening. Really, we have the most incredible panel, and I'm very, very excited for them to come out and tell their stories. I want to dedicate the majority of the time today to them. I think many of you have probably kind of heard my story. Of course, I'll be available for Q&A. I just kind of want to briefly say why I think this event is important, I think, before we get started. Obviously, I'm not Hispanic. And I'm not black, and I'm not Jewish, but these are all different types of events that we're going to be doing with WalkAway and so many more. We recognize with the WalkAway campaign that various minority groups in this country are being marketed to and targeted by the liberal left and the Democrat Party, and they're largely not being communicated with at all by any other groups. Now, every group is different. The issues that affect the black community are different than the issues that affect the Hispanic community. The issues that affect the LGBT community are different than the issues that affect other communities. But it's so important, I think, to get in and have these conversations with these communities, because one thing that really frightens me, as I've opened my own eyes, walked away from the left, I've walked away from the Democrat Party. But what frightens me is not only this message that if you have a certain skin color or a certain religious belief or a certain gender or a certain sexual orientation that you must vote a certain way or believe a certain way. That particular party is becoming more extreme, more left, more fringe, more socialist, more globalist. And I do believe it won't be long before every black, brown, LGBT person and non-Christian in this country believes that they have to be a socialist or a globalist simply because of who they are, what they believe, or how they identify. And that's a serious problem. So we're here today to have a conversation, hopefully have some robust and lively debate. If there's anybody in the audience who disagrees with anything that you hear on the stage, please stand up, ask questions, make your voice heard. This is a town hall. The format of today will be that each panelist is going to come out here. They'll talk for 5, 6, 7 minutes, tell their stories, anything they want to impart toward you. And then you're welcome to get up and ask questions or tell everybody that you think they're big fat jerks and tell us why. We want to hear from you. So with that, I want to bring out this incredible panel. First and foremost, the wonderful Ana Paulina.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I don't know if I'm supposed to do my intro now.
Have a seat.
Okay, so we're going to introduce the rest of us. You guys get my spiel in a second.
Drew Hernandez. Emma Jimenez. Anthony Cabassa. Linda Catalina. And Gabriel Montalba. Have a seat. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the floor over to Ms. Ana Paulina.
So for those of you who might not know me, my name is Ana Paulina. I'm a conservative Hispanic activist. I'm a United States Air Force veteran. Thank you. And how I really got involved with politics is I started working with a counter-trafficking organization called Veterans for Child Rescue that was really following, and mind you, this is a nonpartisan organization, but following what was happening at the US-Mexico border. This was prior to the, in my opinion, political propaganda that was put forth by mainstream media in order to really target the President of the United States. We know that in 2016 and previous that many Democrats were really lobbying for the same policies that we have in effect at the border. And I remember basically my mind-opening moment where I just realized I saw it on CNN. At the time, I really didn't even believe that the news lied to you. Of course, I know now the truth of that. But I remember looking back and seeing that they were literally putting money together to bring these women and children that had been stopped really by the Mexican federal police in Mexico City. And they were basically on a train headed to the United States. And they were on a train with MS-13 gang members. And I realized at that point in time, with the research that I found, not only from the State Department Human Trafficking Report, but from working with this organization, that really, for years, over 20 years, big professional politicians had made it a point to not fix the problem of immigration, but they were in then turn using it for political pull, because in 2020, Hispanic Americans will be the largest voting minority here in the United States. They don't care about what happens to us. They don't care about our families. They care about getting elected. And that is why they've turned the topic of discussion to immigration, to specifically Mexican Americans. And I want to just let you guys know something. Mexican Americans are not the only immigrants in this country, and we're not the only illegal immigrants in this country. So, since then, I've obviously made some great connections. Really, I think we connected with each other all on digital media, because that's where a lot of this grassroots activism is taking place with the independent journalism. And since then, we've really grown all together, and this is what we do now full time. So we're here to save the nation. We are proud to be Hispanic, but we're even more proud to be Americans.
Awesome.
Alrighty, well, New York, nice to be here. Thank you guys for allowing me to be here, my friends. My name is Drew Hernandez. I hail from Southern California, and so I have been dealing with a lot, you guys know, and some of the wonderful people on this panel as well. I'm a youth pastor. I deal with youth. I deal with teenagers, preteens, and a lot of the social issues that they're dealing with because of the repercussions of a lot of policy that is literally being shoved down the throats of not only parents, but children now as well. And so I'm on the front lines in California. I'm the vice president of Bienvenido. I have the opportunity to be on the front lines in conservative outreaching not only to other Hispanics, but to other people and Americans that are blind and have no idea what they really believe. And so I'm thankful to be able to do that as well. I'm also the host and the creator of the YouTube show, Instagram TV show, Lives Matter. I have the ability to do man-on-the-street interviews. I've had millions of views, millions of hits on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram as well, where I take conservative themes, I take very controversial whatever it is, and I hit the streets, I go one-on-one, and I debate people with my ideas. And my motive isn't to defeat people with the knowledge that I attain, but my motive is to unlock people with the knowledge that I've attained, because that's what it's done for me, and it makes me a better person, and it makes me a smarter person, and it gives me the ability to connect with people in a different way. And so that's what I do with my show. If you guys have seen it, or if you guys follow me, I have the ability to do that and connect with so many different activists, so many different people across the nation, not just California anymore. Obviously, here I am in New York with you wonderful, beautiful people. And I'm so thankful to be here, and that's just in a nutshell what I am been given by God to do. So thank you guys for having me.
Buenas tardes. Can you hear me? Buenas tardes. My name is Emma Jimenez. On social media, I am known under the name The Conservative Latina. And I'm a conservative political activist and an independent journalist. And I often get asked, which is really crazy, is you're conservative and you're Latina? Which is so crazy because to me, Hispanic values are conservative values, right? Now, here's the thing, guys, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you, I see a lot of Hispanic conservatives here that I'm familiar with. Who in here has been called a sellout? A sellout again, but in Spanish. Okay, a coconut. Okay, and you've probably been threatened with deportation and you've had your identity taken away from you. And all you did was express a conservative view, right? Now, how demeaning and condescending is it that because of your identity, you're limited to a certain way of thinking? Isn't that a little insulting, right? Now, did you know that over 70% of Hispanic Americans identify as Christian? That's a conservative value. Over 70%. Over 70% of Hispanic Americans believe that the American dream is attainable through hard work itself. Latinos are known for being hard workers. So when I say Hispanic values are conservative values, that is a fact. We are known to be hard workers. We're known to be Christians. Faith, family, and freedom, those are the three core values you will find in any Hispanic family household. The left has never represented my values, and they never will, and I'm sure they don't represent your values as Hispanics.
Hey, Anthony, can I ask what a coconut is?
Oh, okay, so a coconut is what they call his conservatives that are brown on the, that, you know, express
Oh, no!
the outside but on the inside, yeah.
It's like calling you
I know.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
They say we're whitewashed.
Yeah.
Oh, my, okay, thank you.
Yeah, when the opposition chooses to insult you, to hate you rather than debate you, just know that they've already lost that argument.
And they call us the racists.
Yeah, and they call us the racists.
Sorry, Anthony, I didn't
No,
mean
you're
to
good.
interrupt.
Sorry, I should have said that.
Hi everyone, not sure if this is on, but my name is Anthony Cabassa. I go by Conservative Latino online. I actually did not pick my name because of her online. I actually didn't know anyone at all here before I started my social media experiment to see, hey, we don't have really like a voice out there for us here in California. That's where I'm from California. And I was born and raised there. I moved away when I was 18 when I first enlisted. I worked in the United States Coast Guard, so I worked our nation's borders. I worked our nation's borders, and I was actually a Spanish interpreter at the border of San Diego and Tijuana, Mexico. And so we did a lot of search and rescues. We did a lot of drug interdiction. We did a lot of stuff to combat human trafficking. I've worked interagencies with Mexico, Venezuela. I've been to 12 different Latin American countries. I've been to El Salvador when they were going through civil wars because the government refuses to help them with the cartel trying to take over their farms. And I'll never forget, I was in El Salvador, we're in a tinted window, we got armed sentry with us, escorting us everywhere we go because of the civil wars. And next to us, a pickup truck pulls up, and it's like this lady, she's probably a grandmother, and it's these two children, and they're all armed to the teeth, just fighting to survive. And I'm just like, man, like, I wish we could expose all of this back in the States so people know that what's happening at the border is a human trafficking problem, a cartel problem. It's not a racist problem, you know. But they want to sell it like that to us, and I can't tell you how many times I've approached, and you know, my mother's from Mexico. She immigrated from there, and my dad's Puerto Rican. So when I'm on the East Coast, I claim Puerto Rican. When I'm on the West Coast, I claim Mexican. And I fit in everywhere I go, you know. I haven't been to the South yet, so I don't know what to claim down there. You know, so I have these conversations with people, and the thing is, I only just registered as a Republican myself last year. Before that, I didn't. Before that, I really didn't care for politics. Again, I was busy serving our nation for 12 years. I didn't really care. I wasn't involved. People would talk to me about it. I'm like, I'm not interested at all. Like, whoever wins, wins. Just do a good job. But I got involved because after 12 years of being out and serving our nation, I came back to Los Angeles and I saw what was going on. Maybe when I first left at 17 or 18, when I first enlisted, I didn't really pay attention to what was going on in our streets. But when I came back, and now I have 3 kids of my own, and I see the homelessness, I see that the police can't legally do anything to combat the people that are doing drugs. I've seen videos of the homeless doing drugs in front of elementary schools. And I'm just like, you can't do anything about that? And they're like, no, like they won't allow us to. And I was just like, okay, something's got to be done. Like, this is just not right. This isn't a one-party issue. This isn't a white-only issue or a Hispanic-only issue. Like, this affects all of us, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, white Americans. And so my mission has always been to just inform, educate, and then we register them to vote the right way. I'll be honest, I don't go up to people and bash them over the head about what party. I'm just trying to inform them. And just real quickly, I got into a 3-hour live debate with a hard leftist. She actually came from her page because she had some words for her. And then she tried to, and so after she lost that argument, she came to me and she just started going all out. She owns a radio show out in Los Angeles. She's hard leftist, hates Trump, everything about him. And the thing is that she has a large audience. She's able to inform people and tell them about politics, but she knows nothing about politics. So here's the thing, we were on there for 3 hours. I respected her. She came at me with coconut and all these things, you know, whatever, like, oh, you know, you guys are vendidos and, you know, sellouts and this and that. I'm like, look, let me just tell you something. I'm not a lifelong Republican. I wasn't like born into a Republican strong household, and I didn't even vote for Donald Trump 2016. I'm going to vote for him in 2020, that's for sure. But I didn't, you know, I wasn't born like that. And I think maybe a few of you here probably feel that same way, like you weren't really active, but the truth is we got to inform ourselves. We really have to. And I think that with the Hispanic community, I'm finding that a lot of the people, they just vote based off of emotion. They see a soundbite, they see Trump saying something bad, and they're just like, I'm voting like Democrat for sure. And so I talked to this lady, and at the end of the day, at the end of the 3-hour conversation, she's like, man, bro, you're so woke. And I was just like, no, it's just, she's like, how do you know all these statistics? How do you know about the border? How do you know about, and I'm just like, because I have to fight people like you all the time. I have to defend myself all the time. And if I don't know my statistics and I'm caught lying, I'm going to lose you, because I know you're just going to try to find one thing that I'm wrong in and be like, oh, we can discredit him now. So I have to be, you know, on point. And just recently, we were in LA having a conservative Hispanic panel as well. And I remember that we were petitioning to have our governor, Newsom, recalled, because I don't know if you know what's going on in California, but we have power outages, we have wildfires like crazy. They'll try to blame Republicans and this party and that party. That's all government failure. That is all socialist policies that have been shoved down our throats. They're taxing us to death out there, living paycheck to paycheck. Middle class is being driven out to conservative states. We lose our middle class Hispanics to Texas. And I'm like, don't you wish that we had something that Texas had out here, so we're not being taxed to death and stuff? And so I remember we're packing everything up to recall Gavin Newsom, and there was an African-American lady packing her stuff in her trunk. So we made it a point to go and talk to her. And like when we approached her, she was like, oh God, I was hoping they wouldn't see me. And so we just gave her like a little pamphlet. It was in English and Spanish. And we were just telling her, like, look, we're not here to sell you on a party. We're just telling you this guy's doing a really bad job. And she's like, I know, I'm a lifelong Democrat. And I was just like, really? And then she's like, yeah, and I'm actually really upset with Democrats right now. And I'm like, why? She's like, well, I've always been loyal to them. I'm in the education system. I've worked with kindergarten kids for over 30 years. And she's like, I had to quit. I'm like, why did you have to quit? It's like, well, because they were trying to pass these sex education things to second graders and first graders, and I told them I couldn't. As a Christian, I just can't teach this stuff to, like, I mean, these are kids, you know? And so she's like, but I won't switch to Republican because I hate Donald Trump more. And I was like, ma'am, let me just tell you something right now. I don't want you to vote for Donald Trump. Vote for people that are gonna have California's interest first, and you can vote for whoever you want. Just help us here locally. Help the laws change so that you don't have to quit your job and people follow after your steps quitting their job because these kids need you. And she thought about it, and she's like, you're not gonna make me vote for Donald Trump. I can't make you vote anything, ma'am, you're not at all. And she's like, all right, I'll re-register Republican. And I'm just like, that's awesome. That's all we need. That's all we need, you know? And I was just like, that's amazing. So that's a little bit about my story. That's how I communicate with people. It's just, you know, and we need to continue doing it. So thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Check, check. Hi guys, my name is Linda Catalina. I go by Wake Up with Linda on Instagram and YouTube. And I was on Twitter until they banned me permanently. Yes. So a little bit of my story and how I ended up here and involved in politics. I was not a Republican. I'm still not. I'm actually a re-registered independent. But I was a Democrat. So now I consider myself a recovered Democrat. Yeah. What happened was I started noticing how fake the news were. Like they just stood out to me. I'm like, everything's fake. Like these people continue to lie and lie and lie. And I started going down different rabbit holes of what is going on, what's actually true and what's actually not true. And one day they came out with the news that Donald Trump is separating families at the border because he hates brown people and he hates Hispanics and like all these things. And by that point, I already knew that what was going on was that there was a bunch of people presenting themselves at the border with children that weren't theirs. And that's called child trafficking. And I was like, that's just not true. Like, you're lying again. Like, there's the fake news again. Like, and I was really upset because it's obviously affecting the Hispanic community more. Because yes, there's Chinese, there's people from Africa going to Mexico to cross the border, but we know the majority of people coming are from Central American countries and Latin American countries. And what the government's doing is allowing for children to be trafficked. And so I was just really upset, and I started, kind of following all these people on social media and trying to find how I could get involved. And that's when I connected with Ana Paulina, and her and I had a conversation. She was very receptive to me wanting to get involved in politics, and she said, you should start voicing your opinion. We knew more strong Hispanic women speaking for the ones who are voiceless, the children at the border being trafficked, the women being raped, and that's how I started. I started making videos on Twitter, and slowly but surely started involving myself and kind of destroying the fake news, right? And so little by little, I started meeting all these amazing people and getting involved, and I think my page has developed into not just, I consider myself an American first. I gained citizenship 5 years ago. So I just recently became a citizen. Yeah. Thank you. I am Colombian. I came here in 1999, and obviously we've struggled just like many immigrants, but we've made it. I'm a business owner. I've done just about everything. I work for multinational corporations, and I don't consider myself a victim. And once I saw through the deception of the left, I'm like, it's more mental slavery than anything else, because they want to keep us, or especially minorities, entrapped in their system, right? And now that Hispanics are the largest minorities, that's what they want to appeal to. And I think what's really funny is that I live in Miami, and we have a huge Cuban American population. And the Cubans are always talking about communism, and I always thought they were crazy. They're like, oh, ese es un comunista, and I'm like, no, they're not, like, you're crazy. Like, I would go to Versailles, it's like a very famous like Cuban spot, and I would stop there and have my Cuban coffee and pastelitos, and like all the older Cubans are there talking about all these things, and I'm like, these people, like back, a few years ago, I'm like, dude, the Cubans are crazy, man. Like, they think everybody's a communist. And like now I'm like, oh my God, they've just always been so woke. Like they've always known, right? I'm like, yes. They're so woke. They've just always known, like, they lived through communism, right? Like, my best friend, she was born in Cuba, and she tells me, like, awful stories, like, even as far as religion, like, they took away, like, right? Like, the Cuban Americans are very faith-based. They're Christians, they're Catholics, and she had to get baptized, like, behind, like, at night. You know, like, it's a really bad system. They make us believe, oh, and, you know, I have friends of mine that say, well, Linda, you know, it's not communism. And I'm like, of course they're not going to tell you communism first. Too. Like Cuba didn't get that way in one day. Like, they sold you socialism first. And then little by little, they start taking away your rights, right? The gun rights, religion, all these things. So I'm just here really, like, just making a difference, trying to fight for the country, trying to wake up the Hispanic community, which I think we've done a really good job at that. And I did have a WalkAway story. Before I knew Brandon, which is pretty incredible, last year when I re-registered myself as an independent, I only had a few followers on Twitter, maybe like 300 followers. And I remember saying something like, it's official, I re-registered myself as an independent, I'm no longer part of the left, something, hashtag WalkAway. And I had like so many retweets and like people coming back to me like, congratulations, like welcome, all these things. So yeah, that's a little bit of my story. Thank you for being here today.
Nice.
Hello. Hello everyone, my name is Gabriel. I'm actually a Queens, resident Queens native, born and raised here. So, thank you. And you know, I'm so excited to be on this panel with my colleagues here. So, bienvenido to Queens and to New York State, my home. And I actually started my WalkAway story when I was 15, so 5 years ago. I was in a high school journalism class, and he said, you guys are going to think differently from me, but my job isn't to necessarily change your mind. It's just for you to hear the other side. So I said, okay, well, this guy isn't going to do anything. I know that I'm a lifelong Democrat. Democrats always taught me, whether it be in school or on television, that white, old Republican men are trying to just keep minorities down, and if you continue on this path, then you'll never advance as a Hispanic or as a minority. And I said, I guess they're true, because everyone, from my teachers to outside, like friends even, would tell me the same thing. I had no other reason to not believe them. So then I read a book by Ayn Rand. It's called Anthem, and a book by John Stossel called Give Me a Break. And I said, what? You can think individually outside of the collective. You can think for yourself, and being selfish in the sense that you want to do good for your family and for yourself without the government telling you what to do for everyone else. That's moral that I believe in. So then I went online, and I saw videos by Dinesh D'Souza, Steven Crowder, Paul Joseph Watson. I said, conservatism is the counterculture. And I said, well, I guess I'm a conservative then. Thank you. And I had said, there has to be more people like me. And I've never felt so much more comfortable than I have been since I joined the conservative movement, where it's more so accepting. We have people of every different race, religion, creed. The lies that I felt were told to me, it felt so nice to get away from all of that. So prior to this, and my family can tell you, I would not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I would not stand for the national anthem. People said, would you want to ever join the military? I said, no, why would I die for a country, for a piece of cloth? That was what was ingrained into my head. And then when I woke up, I said, no, this country, I'm an Ecuadorian American, second generation. This country gave my family what we have now. They never took any handouts. And I'm proud to be a part. I'm proud of my grandparents for coming here and never living off of the system, because they know that they're better than that. They don't need all of that assistance, and they don't need to be on this democratic plantation. So at the age of 18, against my mother's and my family's wishes, I went to the recruiting office to join the New York Army National Guard and to serve my country. And a couple of facts about Queens. We are in AOC's district, and there are a couple of problems aside from her. We do have New York State Senator Jessica Ramos and Assemblywoman Catalina Cruz, who are very passionate about making sure that prostitution is legal in New York State. Well, they're Democrats, surprise, surprise, but they said, no, it's fine, so long as they consent. Well, it's to my understanding that pimps make them consent. In 2018, Homeland Security came to Queens after a huge investigation and found that for 16 years, women from Mexico were kidnapped and brought here, in this area. There's something called a chica card, where you're able, between the time of, I think, 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., to call a girl to come to your home. Now, I was handed that card when I was 13 years old. So they don't discriminate, obviously. And a survivor of one of the cartels that actually managed to escape had said, for the 4 years that they had kidnapped me, I was raped every day. When business was slow here, they took her to Boston, where she had to work for 16 hours and saw 80 men that night. A woman who was smuggled in here at the age of 52 slept with 52 men in the back of a van. There are gang members here, there are cartels here. In 90th Street, a person got shot in the head 7 times. Now, I ask you all right now, we have Democrats in every seat. It's a Democratic majority here in New York. And do you feel represented? Do you feel safe? No. Queens just elected a district attorney that never served time in court. But because she's a Democrat, she won. They closed on Rikers Island. They want to build prisons in our neighborhoods. We're losing here. So hopefully, us as Hispanic Americans can combat all of this. This is our community. This is our chance to reach out to you, to everyone here, and to the New York GOP, to the RNC, to every Republican party out there. We are here. We want to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much. Before we open it up to Q&A, I just wanted to say, when we've done these various events, the Black Americans town halls, the LGBT town halls, typically what I've done is sort of hand-selected individuals to put on the panel, people that I thought would have good chemistry with one another and were just vibrant, brilliant, amazing speakers. This is a unique situation because the majority of the people on this panel know each other and have worked together before, which is why you're getting that they have such amazing chemistry with one another. Before we go to Q&A, can you tell everybody about your organization and what you guys do?
So really, I'd say probably about, so my story is I basically turned down a seat in medical school to do this. And about 2 months into me doing national outreach, I realized that I would be running for Congress. Thank you. But during that entire transition, I realized that, you know, Hispanic Americans are very diverse. Obviously, we have the common thread, right, the language, but every different, you know, country has its own cultures, its own traditions. And so there was a way that we needed to connect with people, not in a very divisive fashion or a very hurtful messaging, but in a way to where people felt welcome. So I met another individual who's not here on this panel right now, but it was our way of really rebranding and messaging to what would be effective nationally to all Hispanic Americans, right? So for a really long time, I think that really the GOP somewhat forgot that Hispanic Americans are conservative. So the representation that we're seeing now and the engagement that we're seeing even in Washington, D.C. hasn't really been done since George Bush Sr. And so I can say that every single person on this panel has actually been to the White House. We've advised the White House communications team, the presidential communications team on really how to reach, to talk to, and target the Hispanic demographic to really wake them up. But you know, since I've announced, Drew Hernandez took over for me, and also Anthony has been a really big factor in, you know, the national outreach on the RNHA side of things. But it's been something that we collectively together have all contributed to. There's not one person that has, you know, more value in this organization or in this movement than the other person. And I think because of that, that humility, that teamwork is what's done. You'll see, and they always say, never meet your heroes. I met some of my heroes, and I was greatly depressed by the interactions that occurred. And I realized that in this political movement, what ends up happening is you have this sense of, you know, egos, and you cannot be like that, especially when it comes to saving a nation, right? Like, if the founding fathers were trying to squash each other, they would have gone nowhere, and we wouldn't be the United States of America. So this is a solid team. Every single person I've met with, interacted with, I totally vetted them, and I vouch for these people, and I know they vouch for me. So it's been a great experience. Drew, if you want to add anything to that.
Did you say the name yet? the name of the organization?
Yeah, so Bienvenido, like she said, I was given the opportunity to fill her shoes, which was pretty nerve-wracking to do. So my big emphasis with Bienvenido that I can touch on right now is, like Emma was saying, Hispanics predominantly identify as Catholic, Christians. It's high. And when it comes to the Hispanic community, we love our family, right? We love our Jesus. We love our food. We love our freedom. And touching on the faith issue, I just cannot understand how a culture that has been surviving for so long, that has been so independent, working to make a living. Even when you go to TJ in Mexico, you see families, single moms, that can't even walk, selling knockoff Barbie dolls, knockoff backpacks of Minions. I can't understand how a community that has been surviving so long, depending upon Jesus, that is now voting for a party that is pro-killing babies. I don't understand. Yeah. And this ties into our families. Because if a political party with an ideology that believes this type of pro-murder stuff, what that translates into, this translates into anthemic preaching from the pulpits of politics, right? And that translates into policy, and that translates into action, and that translates into the devastation of our communities. And I just cannot understand, this is my heart in Bienvenido right now. I just cannot understand how the Hispanic community that has held on to their faith for so long is forsaking their faith by action, by rejecting God in the Bible, rejecting their own families, by accepting abortion and the slaughtering of many thousands, millions of Hispanic babies that have been thrown down the gutter because of some retarded politician in DC that thought it'd be a good idea to pass that kind of legislation. And I don't understand how Hispanics are still voting for this, and how Hispanics are silent against this and not speaking and voting against it any longer. That's where I stand in Bienvenido, and that's my heart. I don't know if I went too far. But that's very passionate.
The three tenets of the organization itself are faith, family, and freedom, and we are here, doing that national grassroots outreach, partnering with other organizations. We're not the type of organization that would step on another to get ahead. This is a one team, one fight movement, and we are 100% connected through that common thread. So, Anthony?
Yeah, so with my organization, I have it on. With my organization, it's a Republican National Hispanic Assembly, and we have different chapters in every state, and he's actually the vice chair for here in New York. So if you're from New York, this is the guy you want to see. Like Anna said, we're willing to partner with absolutely everybody to work together to really save our nation and save our people. And what we're doing in California, you have to know your state, you have to know your people. You can't go in there and just tell them no, we don't accept you, we don't accept that, we don't oh, you're a Democrat, we don't even want to talk to you. No, we'll talk to everybody. And I know that one of the biggest things in California is, well, at least they claim to be, it's that they care about the pollution and they care about the cleanliness and trash and plastics. But then we have trash everywhere, and most of our cities rank in the top 10 in pollution. So I'm like, man, we've been being taxed to death since the 80s by electing these Democrats to say that they're going to promise to go ahead and do this. I mean, you got Fog City Mitch back there. Big shout out to her. She lives in San Francisco. That's why she calls herself Fog City, because I mean, you have all this pollution out there. And so it's kind of ironic that they're for these things, but I live there, and I'm like looking around. You got homeless junkie over here, you got crack cocaine needles over here, you got trash and plastics over here. So I'm like, you know what? This is what I'm going to fight. I'm going to go out and we're going to clean the streets. We've done 3 cleanups. One of them we worked with Scott Pressler, which I think you know, right? I love Scott. We cleaned up 50 tons of trash from one homeless encampment. 50 tons of trash. I mean, we are the forgotten. The Latinos in the black community out there, we are the forgotten. The homeless people, we are the forgotten. We're byproducts of these empty promises the Democrats have been selling us for years, and it's like Drew said, why are we still voting this way? Yes. And so it's funny because when people come and talk to me about these things, I'm like, well, my organization's already doing this. We're actually cleaning the streets. You want to come? Like, you want to come with us? Like, oh, but you guys are Republicans. Like, so you're not going to help us clean because we're Republicans. Gotcha. Okay, cool. You do you, man. You know, so that's what we're doing out there. And again, our message is, I mean, we work with independents. I got feminists that follow me. I got progressives. I got all walks of life. Like I said, I did 3 hours with that lady that's super hard left. And at the end, she's like, wow, like I'm very uninformed. And I'm like, you want to come to our cleanup? We're doing that. That's right. And she's like, you know what? I will. I'll come out and I'll go out and clean up with you. This is what you guys are really doing. And you're not just doing it. I'm like, no, we've been doing it for months now. And we keep promoting it. We call NBC. We call KTLA 5. We call all these people like, hey, we're doing cleanups over here. If you guys can help us out. They want nothing to do with conservative Latinos, with conservative Black Americans actually making a difference in our community. They refuse to air it. Because, why? Because they're owned by politicians, establishment politicians, who are okay with open borders, who are okay with human trafficking, who are okay with illegal, undocumented people coming over and using them for cheap labor, who live in constant fear, who are scared to be pulled over. That's not a way of life. So when the leftist tells us, oh, you know, like, how could you be for wanting to get rid of illegal? I'm like, I'm not trying to get rid of anyone, but what way of life is that? They have no voting rights.
Where can they find information about your organization?
So if you go to rnhacalifornia.org, that's what we're doing. I don't know if there's any California folks here, but that's what we're doing. And then if you go to rnhanational.org, you can find all of the chapters. And we're ready. We're ready to hit the streets running, and we're not here to vote in establishment. And the thing is, we need a seat at the table. I think with the GOP, what's happened is that people think that they neglect us, but it's just we need to rise up. We need to go into their offices and say, hi, yes, I'm a Hispanic American, and these are our problems from our community, and I'm going to be the voice for my people. And they're willing to give us a seat at the table. But what Democrats have successfully done is they go out and they'll pander to you. They'll go to your door and get those voices. So that we're doing it. We're trying to make a difference here, but we need to integrate ourselves.
Sorry, and then also too, for Bienvenido US, you just go to www.bienvenidous and you'll find all the information there.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I'd like to say that you're all heroes, patriots, and trendsetters. Thank you for what you're doing. My name is Astrid Hajar. I was born in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm also a Boston University alumni, where AOC unfortunately also attended. But I'm very grateful for you guys being here. I have a question for all of you, and I mentioned it to Brandon earlier today. I was approached, my husband and I have been supporters of several conservative think tanks in Washington, D.C. We've been supporters for many years. I was approached by one of them to present different strategies on how to outreach the Hispanic community, conservative Hispanic community, in general Hispanic community. And the response I get from these think tanks is always the same. We don't get into identity politics. We try to avoid identity politics. It's very damaging to this country. And I honestly didn't have I had a couple of answers for them, but I would love to hear your perspective on this. And my second question is, have any of you done any of these events in Boston?
So I'll just start out by saying, so I actually went to the White House. I brought this also to the GOP. This is not identity politics, okay? That's like saying the Boy Scouts of America are playing identity politics by joining together and researching how to do camping. I mean, we all have that common thread. We're going to be able to target and reach one another from within the community doing it that way. The messaging has to come from other Hispanics. I'm sorry, I love Brandon Straka, but he's not going to be able to go into a room and talk to people like Emma the way that I can. So you have to have that common thread. The one thing that's great about the United States of America is that we're all different, but we believe in freedom. We believe in the constitutional republic that we are, our Bill of Rights in the Constitution. So with that being said, that needs to be the messaging. People that have never set foot in the community, that have never really done much outside of DC, they love to give their opinions. They love to make a lot of money on it. But I'll tell you that there's 200 Hispanic organizations in Washington, D.C., and I haven't seen any of them, doing what we're doing. And part of the reason we maintain the autonomy is because your messaging is strongest when no one's controlling it. And I'm sorry, but a lot of people are worried about this and lining their coat pockets instead of going into the community. So you need to just bring fire on that. Tell them to shut their mouths, and you advise them otherwise.
Can I chime in on that for a second? So,
thank you.
So from a marketing perspective and from a business perspective, whenever you market a product, and I've done this for a couple years. You sit in a room, let's say it was Corona, right? A beer, just a regular product. You're gonna sit in a room and you're gonna be there with a bunch of marketers and business intelligence telling you exactly who your target demographic is, and you are going to adapt that campaign if it's for the East Coast of the United States, where there's mostly Hispanics. Let's say Miami, there's going to be a campaign that's going to be different than the one on the West Coast, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, that's the way it has to be. Like, you have to think of your audience, of the demographic that you're going to target, and present the same people that are going to, that are going to assimilate to that. So you have to, whoever's telling you this, they're not really thinking about it from a business perspective, and that's just the way everything works.
Segmentation.
Right. You gotta do that.
Have any of you gone to Boston?
No.
No.
Okay, well,
I was stationed in Boston twice.
Van Shapiro is going to speak to at Boston University next week, and I would like to invite you all to come to Boston because you need to speak in colleges in Boston.
Yeah.
It's important. That's where the kids are getting indoctrinated, and you guys really have to make an effort. You can contact me anytime. I have contacts at Boston University, at Harvard, and I would love to put you in touch with
Do you have a card?
Yeah.
I don't have it right now, but I'll give it to you later.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
Before we move on, because I think this is so important, and this is something I've been talking about a lot. I think probably because I'm a former liberal, conservatives really need to get over the hysteria surrounding identity politics.
Right.
I understand the negative aspects of it and why we don't want to invite that over to our side of things. But I think the first step is to identify what identity politics actually is.
Yep.
Because some conservatives will tell you, well, having a Hispanic town hall is identity politics. No, it really isn't. It's called outreach. It's outreach.
Like, what's the difference between that and holding a pro-feminine, pro-women's anti-abortion event where there's all women? There's no difference. We're all women. We're fighting for a common cause. It's the same thing. 100% get over it.
Yeah, well, but I think, to me, the definition of identity politics is when you use your identity as a wedge or a tool or to attain leverage politically in such a way. If I were to say, I'm a gay man, therefore you're not allowed to speak on this subject and you're not allowed, that's identity politics. Me saying I'm a gay conservative is not identity politics. I am gay and I am a conservative. Those are facts. But I mean, we shouldn't have this level of hysteria surrounding the fact that we're doing outreach events. This is necessary and important stuff. We have to do this.
And the identity politics that Democrats use is to put you into a victim mentality. Us, in this conservative movement,
and it's divisive.
Exactly, vote for me because I'll give you free stuff. Here, live off of my Democratic plantation. As conservatives, what we're doing is think for yourselves. We're going to bridge that gap to introduce you to these new ideas. So that's the difference. We're encouraging people, not putting them down or making them reliant.
Did anybody see Elizabeth Warren's tweet yesterday? It was something about thank you, black, cis women, transgender.
Cis women.
Yeah.
Like it was like 5
Non-binary.
things. I was like,
Non-binary.
what? And then she goes, you're the backbone of America. I'm like, that's like less than 1% of America. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that is identity politics, right? So,
I just wanted to add, like, real quickly too. The problem here too is because I get this a lot in my direct messages because I'm the Republican National Hispanic Assembly. Like, so you're only representing Hispanics? I'm like, no, we're targeting Hispanics, but here's why: because Democrats have been playing identity politics for so long. It's gonna take some of the same tactics to reach our own people to get them out here. But then once we have them out here, we don't necessarily have to have town halls anymore because now we have them on board. But sometimes the way you draw those people in is if you have someone, because especially in California, and I'm sure it probably happens here in New York, is black people are not going to be receptive to you unless you've struggled the way they've struggled. Or the same thing with the Latinos. They're not going to want to hear what you have to say unless you've struggled. It's like a tribal thing. Like they're just like, no, you're not allowed to come and tell me what's wrong with me unless you look like me and you've struggled with me. And even like within our own community, like people are like, oh, so all the light-skinned Latinos get a platform?
We get that
and I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, so now we're too light-skinned. And I'm just like, the thing is, so that's how you do it. So I would say that, say that to them. And I'm just like, you don't understand the community then.
Right.
You're not understanding because
people advising that should not be advising.
They're bad marketers.
Bring us on into advisors.
My name is Derek. I just want to say, to you, Brandon, it's a very big honor just to be able to ask this because the thing is like I look up to you for what you've done because I walked away from the Democrat Party in September 21st of 2016. And don't take me. I could relate with what you were saying when you got banned from Twitter because I was banned from Instagram for standing up for one of my exes because she was a victim of rape, unfortunately, and I call out Kate Upton for exploiting the Me Too, and they banned me for it. So with that being said, my question is that about a few days ago, Laura Loomer she's involved in a lawsuit against Facebook, and Facebook in those legal documents admitted that they're a publisher. So what is your take on how that's going to help with WalkAway, because now they're considered a publisher? Do you think it's going to make things easier just for to expand the movement, also to make all those who've really done these unfortunate things against conservatives liable now and accountable?
First of all, thank you very much. And did you say you walked away in 2016?
Yes.
So you shouldn't be looking up to me because you walked away first.
Yeah, but you're the one who made this expanded law, so that's all you.
I was 2017. Yeah, so this is a very interesting topic and time that we're at now, where are you a platform or are you a publisher? And with Facebook announcing that they're a publisher, I think they're really opening themselves up for a lot of lawsuits, because they have to make a choice. They're either a platform and they're going to remain neutral, which means that they're not going to slow down what you post or what anyone else posts based off of the content. This is the really scary thing that they're doing now, too, by the way. Has anyone seen that they're now addressing false news on Facebook? My group, WalkAway Campaign, is getting strikes constantly saying that my members are posting false news. And surprise, it's like anything that questions climate change or anything that questions, leftist principles. And then they get to decide, well, there's so much false news being perpetrated by your group, we're going to have to shut it down. And that's very, very scary, what they're opening up this avenue, basically, to be able to not only suppress, but basically just completely silence us going into the most important election, I think, of my lifetime, I think any of our lifetime.
The United States in general.
Yeah, the United States in general. I apologize, what was your actual question?
Oh, my question was since that Facebook, in the legal documents, they've said that they're now a publisher.
Yeah.
So do you think that that's going to help with being able to make those who have been banning conservatives accountable now?
I think you would have to read really through what their policy is, and we all know that Facebook likes to change terms and conditions all the time.
Yeah.
So without knowing that, I don't think we'd be able to fully answer it. But I think that in general, it's really important that even if you don't agree with some people, that you protect their free speech. And that's because even right now here in New York, if you say the term illegal immigrant, isn't it like a $250,000 fine? That's not right. That should not be the case. That is a term that is literally used to describe someone who has not come here the correct process. There are legal immigrants and there are illegal immigrants. So in general, with that being said, we need to protect free speech. We need to collectively work to have each other's backs and really speak out against this.
Thank God for the First Amendment. So.
Yeah. And the second, the backs.
Yeah, and the second.
To protect, the second to protect the first.
Thank you.
And to be honest with you, I don't really feel like WalkAway on a regular basis is going to be targeting the people who are on the extreme left. It's the people who are feeling more and more pushed away from liberalism in their party. And to answer your question, yeah, I do think that will push some people away. Even if they don't agree with people on the right, there are people who are on the center left who I think are I at least want to live in a world where we can have open dialogue and debate. And yes, I do think it'll push those people away.
Hi, my name's Tony. Came in here from Chicago. I just want to say it's an honor to be with you guys. I was also a former liberal. The reason I came over to the right is because of the mainstream media lies, and none of it makes sense. And I just started looking up stuff for myself, and it just, like I said, didn't make any sense. Looked up history. I'm like, wow, why isn't the Republican Party saying they've been standing up for civil rights since the longest time? But my question to you people, to you guys, is the mainstream Spanish media tells lies too, and they're big, and I'm from Chicago. There's a lot of Hispanics, especially Mexicans. They watch Telemundo, they watch Univision. I sometimes watch it, and they always frame us as horrible, mean people that just don't want to help our supposedly own people. So how can we combat it? I want to get involved in politics. I think what we're doing here, we're doing a great service to this country, and I just want to spread this message. So how can how can I do this?
First of all, turn off Univision. Okay, I did that. That was the best advice I gave my parents. My mom, and I gave her independent journalists to follow. I don't know if a lot of you know who Jorge Ramos is. Yeah. All right, he is highly admired in the Hispanic community. When Trump announced the border wall, Jorge Ramos, who has been extremely critical about Trump, more specifically about his border wall, said that the wall is a symbol of hate and racism. Do you guys remember that? Yeah. For those that want to make America white again. Those are his words, his quote, okay? Immediately, every Hispanic immigrant viewed it as, oh my gosh, Trump is, obviously hates immigrants, because he wants this wall. Every other country has like, a wall. So people praise this guy because he is an immigrant. He made something out of himself. This man, Jorge Ramos, his bias and politically motivated influence on the largest news network for Hispanic Americans, it could be noted as to why many of them oppose the wall, because he has made it seem as it's something that's anti-immigrant. So the best advice I can tell you to that I can tell you to do is inform your family, but do it in an approach to it like in a loving way. Like, hey, you know what? Let me give you another news source, not just this one. Don't let a catchy headline get the best of your emotions. And that's the aim of the media. The media aims to trigger an emotion out of you. All right, that's for any news source. Okay, they want to trigger an emotion out of you, a response out of you. All right, and when it comes to Univision, and it's mostly been left-wing news media, is as soon as they hear something that can make the president, for example, look bad, they're going to roll with it. They're not even bothering to fact check it anymore. Like for example, when Trump called MS-13 animals, all right? Immediately, they said, oh, well, he was referring to all immigrants. No, he was referring to MS-13, and they are animals, okay?
Right.
They are animals. I think we can all agree with that. But they twisted it, and they showed an edited video clip where it looked like Trump was referring to immigrants, all right? They didn't show you the actual video clip. So I remember showing my mom that video because she's like, Emma, I saw a video that said that Trump called us animals. I'm like, Mom, where did you see that video, first of all? Well, I saw it on Univision. I'm like, okay, well, let me show you the real video, okay?
Right.
And immediately when she saw that, she's like, I was lied to? These people don't know they're being lied to, okay? Because you wouldn't think a really big news station would lie to you like that. Or how about when when those pictures came out of immigrant children in cages, all right? They blamed Trump for it. Those pictures were from 2014. Who was president back then? Obama.
A lot of those pictures weren't even. A lot of those pictures, though, weren't even from the United States. Some of them were from Mosul, so not even in Mexico, not even in the United States, in a whole other country. And those were not Hispanic children. They were Middle Eastern children. And that in itself was just like, how could you guys really even be exploiting people? But to answer your question about the media aspect, Anthony, and part of what we did is because you have first, second generation English, Spanish speaking, maybe no Spanish, maybe more Spanish. It just depends on really the person and then their family and then really their story, right? So the one thing is Anthony was, shopped actually by a large news network to do a Spanish-only news station, and unfortunately, there's not enough funding, and they didn't want to back someone like Anthony, because could you imagine if you had a conservative Spanish-speaking voice? So for those of you asking, like, what content is coming out for us, what is going to be really promoting the conservative Hispanic messaging, I actually recently signed with PragerU as their chairwoman of their Hispanic outreach. Thank you. And coming up here in the spring, I'm going to be co-producing a documentary that's going to be a 12-part series following some of the largest conservative Hispanic voices in the nation. We are going to be doing it in English, but we are dubbing it in Spanish. First and foremost, I think, when we saw the presidential debates, when you have people pandering, it doesn't go over well, okay? Right. I know that for my family's personal story, when my grandmother came here, she took the English classes, and she took pride in the fact that she knows English as a language, but that you also have to provide content, which is something that they all do independently in Spanish for those who might not have that assimilation yet. So I think it's being done in a respectful fashion, and I don't know if you want to kind of take it over from here, but he does do a podcast in Spanish, and she also does content videos in Spanish. Same with Linda.
So yeah, so with myself is I'm just like you, man. I have a huge Mexican demographic out there. I'm Mexican myself. My parents, well, my dad, he speaks pretty good English, but my mom, she kind of gets by, and especially my grandparents and extended family, they don't really know a lot of English. And so that was my main concern, is like, dude, we need to start pushing this stuff in Spanish. And of course, when you see on Telemundo, you tune in and you're like, dude, these guys are doing a disservice. And I've reached out to like a couple other companies, and I told them like, hey man, I'm willing to do this all for free. I'll do it all in Spanish for you guys. But unfortunately, they either think it's too small of a demographic, or I don't know, maybe they don't think, like again, like that lady that was talking about when they advised her, like, we don't want to play identity politics. Maybe they're like, we don't need to have conservative media in Spanish. I'm like, you're doing a huge disservice. Yeah. So when I go around and I talk to people, I do pamphlets in English and Spanish. I have a podcast called The Free Thinking Latinos, which I actually had to stop because I'm in school right now. I'm in nursing school. I'm about to finish. So I had to put it on stop right now. But it was in English and Spanish. But honestly, what I would say, man, without making it like too, like kicking a dead horse here, I would say you have to go and engage those people. No one's going to do it. And the thing is, like, when you tune into these like Democratic debates and you see their best attempt at speaking Spanish,
terrible.
You need to go. What I do is I write down point by point the things that they're really emphasizing, and you need to translate it into Spanish, and you need to create a post.
You guys have to be your own community advocates. Like, there's only us, and we're like the Hispanic Avengers, yay! But I mean, like also too, like there might not be people that like our messaging, but they might like yours better. So don't be afraid of saying something. What's it going to say? Like, the worst someone can say is, okay, we don't like you. All right, well, there's X amount of billions of other people, so yeah, you'll be okay.
And come with love too.
Yeah,
that's how I did it with my mom.
Of course. I'll say, can you guys please come to Chicago? Because definitely you guys should come.
For sure.
Thank you.
We need funding, guys. So if you want us, I mean, donate things. Walk away.
Hello, my name is Lev Ivashko. I came from Washington, D.C.
Awesome.
Thank
Just
you.
for this.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I'm third generation Ukrainian American, pero aprendí español en la escuela secundaria, yo hablo también, so I figured I was allowed to come, okay? So you guys have heard of the whole voter suppression thing.
Yes.
And you've also heard about voter fraud. I was at a Bolivian festival at the beginning of 2016. This is a true story. And the long story short of it is, was it 2015? Before the elections, basically, a friend of mine who did not have her citizenship from Colombia, Medellin, she actually went to a booth and they said, come on, go register to vote. She's like, well, I'm not yet a citizen. Say, it's okay, you can do it anyway. And she's like, well, it's okay, I'll do it. A few months later, before the elections, she gets a voter registration card. True story, I have the photo, I have everything documented. Have you heard of this happening? And if you have, I mean, has it happened to you, or do you have heard anybody that you know? Because I literally have the evidence.
I haven't, but if you could get her to make a video and then send it to me so I could tweet it, that would be amazing.
And I can even give you a picture of the card itself.
Yeah,
it's
a
whole
video
letter.
testimony would be stronger just for something like that, because people like to say, oh, voter fraud doesn't happen. Oh, really? Well, why are dead people and cats voting in California?
So this is actually a huge thing in California. We're fighting this really hard with the Republican National Hispanic Assembly. I actually just posted yesterday, there was a guy who I helped, he was trying to re-register Republican, and his voter registration came, there was only 3 options: Democrat, Libertarian, and American Independent. There was no Republican on the ballot. And you better believe that I posted it. So we have friends that are lawyers, and we're working it over with them. So absolutely, so it's a huge problem. Los Angeles County alone has 140% voter registration. Let me tell you something, I live in LA. And I'm telling you, I talk to people that like they never voted, and I'm like, we have 140% voter registration turnout every election. Are you kidding me? Like, are you guys that fantastic out here? Like, there's no way there's 140%. There's no way, and it's huge, absolutely. So the best thing that we can do is we need to record this. We need to take video evidence and this, and you need to demand. You need to call your local Congress or your local district and be like, hey. Judicial Watch. I don't know if you follow them or not. They're really amazing. They're helping California. So with our lawyers, we're sending them the footage, and they've already helped. I think they just helped California unregister 1 million people that were either deceased or no longer living in the state or whatever. And I mean, that's just a tiny fraction of all the voter fraud that is happening. But the thing is, what's that? The same way, you need to reach out to Judicial Watch.
But we can't do it. There's only 12 of us. You guys have. You guys get to. You have a initiative.
Absolutely. So I actually have a story about here in New York. There was actual, I had a friend who was running for a county committee, among many of us, and he was running against another GOP candidate, and it was a time for the elections. What wound up happening was he had said, hey, I'm here to vote, I'm the candidate, and they said, there's no Republican elections at all. There are no ballots for you. He said, what are you talking about? He had to go back and forth with these people for 15 minutes, and he actually got on footage that they took it out of a box behind the booths. Turns out he won for his county committee position by 1 vote, and that was his vote, because they hid it for the Republicans that were coming in since 8 o'clock in the morning that day.
We've heard of people shredding ballots. That's actually something that we have photographic evidence, that the ballot harvesting. I don't know if you have it here in New York or back in Washington, D.C., ballot harvesting. Basically what this is, Democrats have huge funding, guys, okay? Huge funding. And it's just crazy how much funding they have. And so what they do is they grab these ballot harvesters. What they do is they go and they pick up ballots that you sign, and they go and pick it up. They're supposed to be nonpartisan, non-biased. All they do is take it from the front of your door, and they bring it back to the office, and they're supposed to be counted. What we found that they're doing is they're opening them, and if they have Republican on it, they either shred it or they throw them away. We found 18-wheeler trucks full of voter registration for Republicans that were being dumped. They don't even go through like a really rigorous process where it's like low-key spy stuff. They just dump them on the side of the freeway.
If you guys
just leave them out there.
If you guys want to help combat this, seriously get involved with a local candidate, whether it's a congressional race, whether it's a city council race. Help them monitor, and I know we're conservative, and sometimes that means we're financially conservative. Donate, guys, come on. It takes like even $5, like it will help that candidate. So if you guys don't have money, then volunteer, but you guys can all make a difference by making an active choice to get involved and help these candidates out, especially if it comes with babysitting. Go volunteer to pick up those registration cards, and it will make a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was a Northern Virginia registration card.
It's happening
crazy.
everywhere.
It's
People
everywhere.
are sending it to me from Texas, Arizona. There was a lady in Arizona who sent it to me. She had to register Republican 3 times because every single time, when she did it the first time, it came back and said, congratulations, you're registered as a Democrat. She's like, no, I think you did it wrong. So she went and did it again. Congratulations, you're registered as a Democrat. She's like, oh my goodness gracious. Like, how many times do I have to send this thing in? So she's like, how can I do it just by myself? Because I keep sending things in and they're bringing it in. So you have to check. You have to check that you have to make sure that you're registered the party that you selected, and double check. And especially if you recently moved, here's a big one. If you recently moved, you have to re-register. You absolutely have to re-register. So I just moved a couple months ago, and I re-registered at my current address because they'll do any tactics to not let your vote count. So
thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Fernando Uribe. First of all, I admire all of your work. Thanks for the follow back on Instagram. I had the pleasure of Anthony being on my podcast a couple months ago, and it was an absolute privilege to have you on. And one of the things I really admire about all of you is just your tenacity and your perseverance about being civil, promoting dialogue, and sort of trying to enhance the conversation. And one of the biggest challenges I have, I do media in New Jersey, podcasting and everything else, but my day job is I work in higher education. And I'm one of the few conservative college professors that work at Bergen Community College. And thank you. And I hope that I did see some literature there about you guys doing some college tours, so I'm glad you're doing that. But what's the biggest challenge that you would say you face on college campuses? For example, as an educator, I don't like to indoctrinate my students. That's not teaching. That's just brainwashing, and I don't subscribe to that, and that's not the best way to teach in higher ed. And also, I teach political science, so you can imagine the challenge I have with my colleagues. What would you be able to tell someone like myself, or even students on a college campus, about how important it is to sort of be intellectually honest and diverse? Because I can tell you that with my students, again, I don't try to indoctrinate them at all, but we talk about issues every day. And we talk about sort of like present day context and how we can sort of have them informed. And I always warn my students, come 2020, register to vote, get involved in campaigns, but read. And don't just rely on the fake news media and the American left, because what they've done is they've toxified our college campuses, they've toxified almost every aspect of pop culture. What can you say to someone like myself, or even college students, when you go to your college tours, about just not falling for the lies of the liberal media, but more importantly, what you can do to sort of further conservative causes, because they are noble causes?
Yeah, I would give you this advice. I'm a born-again Christian, so I believe Jesus Christ is the greatest teacher of all time. And so, yeah. With that, in the Bible, Jesus taught parables, and it's what we would call in theology parabolic teaching. And what he would do is he would relate to the culture, he would relate to society, but he would paint an illustration that would be cast out to the hearer to where they would be laid out a truth. And when the truth is laid out, it forces the hearer to discern and to make a decision as to what they're hearing. Is this true? Is it false? What is being presented to me? And intellectually, it causes someone to actually think. And so I think that's what we've forsaken in higher learning, lower learning, K through 12, all of it, all the way up until college, universities. I think we have forsaken teaching our kids how to think and just shoving information down their mouths. That's false. That could even be true. But I believe Jesus taught that very well, that he allowed people to think for themselves by presenting facts, presenting truths, presenting scenarios, presenting different things to actually think about so that the hearer could independently make a conscious, educational, discerned decision for themselves. And I think as a higher learning educational individual like yourself, I would follow that model with whatever you're presenting to your students, because you're dealing with a lot of millennials that fact check everything on Google, literally, and that's good. But we need to teach them, because this is how God taught me, to seek the truth in everything. And everything that I say, everything my mom says, everything my dad says, everything Trump says, Trump is not God. And I don't view him as God. And I know that, some people in the room are like, whoa, really? Yes. I seek the truth in everything. And I think if you're that type of individual that's discerning like that, you're going to find the truth in everything. And I think that makes a very balanced intellectual thinker.
Thank you guys again. And by the way, I want to be able to get at least all of you conservative Avengers at some point. I'm going to reach out to all of you.
Sir.
I'd like you to be on my podcast as well.
Yes,
Anthony,
sir.
I think you had a good time.
I did.
I think we'll have a great conversation.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you again, guys.
Thank you.
Actually, on that topic, I know there's someone else coming up, but I had worked in the education field as an after-school teacher from 2nd grade to 4th grade. And I had always taught them, I said, listen, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to teach you, or going to try and teach you that in history there's good guys and bad guys. But if you want to actually learn, and if you really want to learn something, you have to look at it objectively. History is history, facts are facts, and as Ben Shapiro says, they don't care about your feelings. And that being said, even at a college level, I was told, my political science teacher, first day, he slams his fist on the table and he says, I'm a progressive with a capital P. And I'm like, okay. And throughout the semester, this was during the 2016 election, he comes up to me and he says, I blame the Republicans for the impeachment of Bill Clinton. And I said, well, I blame the Democrats for the Civil War and for promoting slavery. I blame all of them. And, he shut up. And then once the class was finally over, I had 7 people come up to me and say, hey, I actually agree with you, but I was too afraid to say anything. And I think it's very important that we teach students from a young age, all the way up, that if you're going to, the reason why we have a First Amendment is to start revolutionary ideas. This country was built on revolution. If you are not able to speak freely, someone else controls your narrative, and someone else controls your truth and history.
Yeah. Amen.
My name is Jesus Flores Carranza, Jesus, Cristo, as a joke is.
Christ?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is to you is that, do you think that conservatives have to be more outspoken and more, how do you say it, more dominant in their fields, or just like in their personalities in some way?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not time to sit on the sidelines anymore. You need to. Why should you be afraid to say that you love God? Why should you be you should never be ashamed to say that you love God and you love this country. You should never be put to shame for that. Own it. Own your voice, because when you own your voice, you own your power. There's others that will use their voice to make noise, and then there's others that use their voice to make a difference. Which one will you be? So own your voice.
But I think there's also, if, for example, you're not into the public speaking arena, you could also write. If you're more of a writer, find your way. If you're someone that is into art and wants to produce, I mean, there's different ways that you can contribute without having to, go what we do. I think that any single person on this panel, especially Linda, will clap back real quick at someone if they pop off. And it's great, like you need that. But everyone, all different personalities, everyone makes up this unique portion in this role movement. So I feel a little bit more soft-spoken, but you can be a writer.
Hello, my name is Darren. I'm from the Bronx. I just want to say, Linda, I like your anti-vaxxer content. I thought it's really good. Keep being a free thinker.
Not people.
So my
separate panel.
So my question is, sort of lately in the conservative movement, I feel like there's been sort of like there's infighting between I feel like more conservative people versus sort of like more open thinkers.
You mean fringe or?
Oh, no, not fringe, more like open thinkers, but also it's there's a feud online on Instagram between Kathy Zhu and Burning Berber, and lately it's been a feud between Nick Fuentes and Charlie Kirk. So I'm sort of asking how would you say we can draw a line between being inclusive to other people, but also not submitting to outside forces?
I feel like what you're asking about is this sort of uprise that's happening with the far right now. Is that what you're talking about? Yes. And so, look, I'm only speaking for myself right now, and just to reiterate, with WalkAway, we never tell people what party they have to affiliate with or who you need to vote for, what you need to believe. I'm just telling people to think, not what to think. But I believe, my personal opinion is that there is a huge core of us in the center in this country, and that includes people on the center left as well as people on the center right who are representing the common sense Americans but are very silent. I think the silent majority is sort of the center.
Right.
I see what's happening on the far right particularly these last few weeks. And at first I thought I was really concerned about it, and I am concerned about it. But part of me even thinks, you know what, let's let them rise up a little bit. Because those of us who are just for supporting the president or being conservatives who have spent years, and those of you who've been conservatives for years, being called alt-right, being called Nazis, being called racist, when in fact you're really just common sense Americans. Let's let those fringe right people rise up so that we can draw the line and see the difference. That's how I feel. Because they're really disgusting.
And I would even kind of just guard about calling people even right. I mean, there's a difference between being a right thinker and then being a white supremacist, actually race-hating person. I mean, when I go online, and we've all seen it, okay, we track it, but when you see content where they're saying that you shouldn't interbreed with other races, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not a dog. I'm going to literally marry who I want, and I happen to be biracial and bicultural. So I have brown eyes, I have those ties, and I'm sorry, but I'm way more qualified to do what a lot of people wish they could do on this platform because I've stood up and really fought for things and people that I believe in. So I know Linda has some commentary on that, but there's a difference, there's a huge difference.
I wanted to chime in on this and say that I'm all for, maybe people don't agree with me, but I'm all for disruption. So I've been following this alt-right, far-right, whatever you want to call it, movement, and I've listened to everybody carefully and put in time to what they have to say. I think that it's really disappointing to see these big-time conservatives who have a huge platform wanting to silence people that they don't agree with, okay? I don't care if you are, even if you are saying that you shouldn't racially mix, I may not agree with that, but you should still have a voice, right? And the problem is that, let's be honest, there has been a demonization of white people in America, especially white men, right? White people are what was the last one the AOC did, Emma?
She blamed white people for climate change.
White people are the problem for climate change. White people are the problem for everything, right? Just blame white people for everything. And that you got to understand that at some point, white people are going to try to rise up. At some point, there's going to be a reaction to all this negative feedback that we've been hearing on the news, right? And I think that's kind of what's happening with this. It's a very small I would say it's a minority on the right, and I have some concerns of the things that they have to say, especially when it comes to interracial mixing. Like, I've liked all types of men, so I feel like, and I had this discussion with someone, I'm like, yeah, dude, but like, if I have an energy with like, you know, white man or black man or Asian man, like, I'm not gonna not like them because they're not like me, right? And I almost feel like the Hispanic people are like the middle children that are like left out in the dark because we're not white, we're not black, we're like, what are we? Like, I'm what you call mestiza, right? Like, I have black family, I have white family, I have indigenous family. So, you know, it's you have to let them speak, because what happens is, if you don't give them a platform, if you don't debate their ideas, they're gonna grow angrier and angrier and angrier, and then eventually they'll want to have a revolution, right? Or do something that's not safe or great. So I'm all for them speaking their truth and stuff like that, and you'll be surprised that sometimes you hear them and you say, you know what? I thought that they were maybe white supremacists or whatever, but it happens that they're not. They just believe in this, and even if I don't agree with it, I can still respect it. So
I feel like those people are everything that Trump supporters have been accused of being, like all of this time. So part of me almost welcomes like this small group rising up a little bit, so that Trump supporters can push back and then people will see Trump supporters pushing back and be like, these people do not represent our values.
And
this is not who we are.
Can I just say, in 2020, like, stay out of the Instagram drama, and I hate to say that, but like, we're literally fighting socialism here. Like, this is not what we need to be focusing on, and it just takes so much time out of the bigger message. I mean, like, really, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, I don't agree with people that are posting interracial anything, and I'm not ever going to agree with you, and we can debate that all day long, but I'm also not going to take time out of my day to like go talk to kids on college campuses or to do events like these with you guys in town halls. It's really focusing on the issues of, there's literally the exploitation of an entire demographic of people and ideological warfare between minorities, whether you're black or Hispanic, by the DNC, and indoctrinating, and that's what we need to be focusing on.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sophia Rotuno, and I'm from Staten Island, New York. And I am a gay conservative. I have one thing to say. Hey, Queens! Hey, Queens! Okay, that's an old RuPaul joke. Okay, but anyway, Brandon.
Yes, darling.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What's
from
that
the gay
shirt say?
community. Thank you. But let me tell you, I started following somebody else on this panel before you. And that is the beautiful Anna Paulina. She is a badass, people. Follow her on Instagram. And I wish you luck. She looks great in a uniform, too. Beautiful. I will follow all of you. Thank you all for being conservative voices in a conservative city, New York City. We have conservative values. We are all powerful, and we must vote the Democrats out. Okay, then out. My question is, how do we get people to vote? There are 4.5 million voters registered in New York City. Only 1 million plus came out to vote for mayor. And I got one question to ask anybody. Does anybody like de Blasio? How did he win? Come on. So I ask this great panel, and the woman in the middle, I'm sorry, faith, family, and freedom. As an American, our Constitution is under attack, and our First Amendment, free speech, is under attack. So we must rise up and not be silenced. And the one way, even if you have fear, go vote. And tell everybody to vote.
Drive
and my question is, the man at the end, our Queens representative, who are we going to get up against AOC? And how do we get the New York GOP to wake the fuck up?
Well, as sad to say, AOC is not the biggest problem. Like, she's a huge issue because people give her so much attention, but there are other competitive races throughout New York State that people can get involved in, and what happens is you have to start at a very local level to influence that change up to the federal. Right here, who I have with me is my New York State Chairman, Ariel. He's with the RNHA as well as the New York Young Republicans. And they are out here, canvassing, knocking on doors. When I had to run, when I was running for a local position here, I knocked on Republican doors. And They were even like, "You're a Republican? Hispanic? Queens? Yeah."
He's a unicorn.
Yeah, unicorn. And nobody believed it. They said, "No, you must, you have the wrong guys. You must be some Democrat that's trying to, figure out who I am." And I said, "No, these are all, I got this information from the Board of Elections because you are technically constituents that I may have in the future. And please, if you'd like to get involved, come speak to me. I'll represent you here in the neighborhood and, get involved." Because when people start to have a very defeatist attitude, we can always complain about de Blasio. How does he win? Well, it's easy. He has a D next to his name because nobody wants to challenge and go out there and challenge that initiative and that story. So it's up to people, like we've all been saying, it's really about activism and it's really about taking time. And if it's something that you believe in, like I said, there's a lot of crime going up in New York. Here in the city, it's going back to the days prior to Giuliani. And if Democrats really worked, if their initiatives really worked, if their policies worked, we wouldn't see our city and our state fall to shambles. We wouldn't see a bankruptcy. We wouldn't see a bankrupt state. So it's about getting their attention, making some noise. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Walter Mejia. I actually went with Bienvenido last spring to the White House, so it's a pleasure to see all of you again. My question is in regards to the youth movement in politics today. I am 23 years old. I'm an immigrant from El Salvador. I had the pleasure of actually being an assistant manager for the congressional campaign in NY04. We have, I go to the City College in New York, and we have a lot of issues. We have the issues of Marxism, where a lot of the ideas of Karl Marx is being taught to a lot of the youth. And everybody believes it, everybody. But what I am extremely, and I have to criticize the GOP, what I am extremely disappointed with Republicans in regards to climate change, pro-climate environment policies, when it comes to student loans and education. Where is the Republican Party? Because all I've seen is, and I'm a Republican conservative myself, and all I see while I was doing the congressional campaigns, and all my constituents asked me, what are Republicans doing for education and college students, student loan debt? I couldn't say anything. And I'm someone who wants to one day run for Congress and for the state assembly and emphasize conservative values. But my question to the panel and to everybody else today is, what can Republicans emphasize to the youth, to individuals who are independent or moderate, or even Democrats? What can we emphasize to them in regards to education and pro-climate policies?
Okay, so, and this goes back to like the fake news and the suppression of news that should be going out to the public. I don't know if you know, but President Trump is very pro-environment. Like he signed, don't quote me on or ask me the executive order that he signed, but it was to clean up our oceans. And in that executive order, he points out to China and India, who are the biggest polluters in the world. We're also producing what he likes to call very clean coal, right? And there's just a lot of initiatives that actually have gone through the White House, but the news are not talking about it. So that's why people like us are the ones that are publishing this alternative news, if you want to call them, right? There was another, actually, after we pulled out of this fake Paris Accord agreement, we're actually leading the world in CO2 emissions. Like we're producing, right? Is that how you say it? I don't know if you actually say it.
Leading country in reducing carbon
emissions. Right. So there's just a lot of this misinformation with what we call man-made climate change, right? And I personally don't believe in it. I have my reasons why. I'm not going to get into it right now. It's really more of a psychological war on people to get you to believe that the world's going to end in a few years. It's not true. This is what always happens, okay? The world goes in cycles, and it kind of hit me when I was in Sedona in February, and I was in one of these vortexes, or whatever you want to call it, and there's I don't know if it was a bell or whatever it's called, but there's a story, and it tells you that desert used to be an ocean. Like it tells you right there, this used to be an ocean many many years ago, and now it's a desert, and that's just what's going to happen. Like, I'm sure Miami may disappear in 100 years. We don't know that, but we're not going to stop that just by giving them more money. So it's not going to happen. Like, you have people like Anthony cleaning up 3 cleanups already in a year, right, since you started. And like we said, we can't get a single local news station to cover it. So people like yourself, you know, don't know about these things. So that's as far as like the environment. And then for me, I'm very, like, I'm at the point where I don't think, and after watching a few videos and researching, like, I don't think we should be paying more than 1% to 2% taxes. Like, I'm pretty much done with taxes. Like, I'm a business owner, and like the fact, like, after I became a business owner and I had to pay taxes out of money, I was like, hell no. Like, no, like, why? And then every single time I drive through this pothole by my house, I get pissed. Every day, going to the gym, I'm like pissed off. Like, I could do a better job than you, right? So if you don't have to go to school, that's my point of view. Like, you don't have to go to school to make it. You don't have to go to school to make a lot of money. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of people who are very wealthy that never went to school.
Is challenge yourself and say, you know what, I don't see this in the GOP party, so then I'm going to integrate myself, I'm going to be a voice, and I'm going to champion those things. Because what's happened is that the Democrats have hijacked just about everything. Whatever you care about, they target even the smallest percentage, right? They give months to like a small demographic for heritage and all that stuff, and I'm like, they've just been able to platform it, like they really care about it. But again, take a look at California. They claim to be about the climate and stuff like that. So you hear a lot of noise on the left, but you don't see a lot of results on the left. And so what I would, again, tell you is that if you want to integrate that into the GOP, if you wish to one day do it, then you need to do it yourself. You know, because this is what I tell everybody. People always tell me, so what are you running for? What do you hope to accomplish? I'm like, what I hope to accomplish here, even just today, I don't want followers. I don't want 100 people to start following me so they can hear what I have to say. What I want is so that hopefully whatever we've said has inspired each of one of you to go back into your home and be like, today I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to see the change that I want to see in my community.
Thank you so much. Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Brandon Straka, I just want to say thank you. You don't know how much of an impact you've had on me personally.
Thank you.
Like, you really, really have. I was actually long-time liberal leftist. I was in the Occupy Wall Street movement. I was in Ducati Park. Oh. Seriously, no, I was in there. I was full-blown atheist, just totally against it, and I think it was more like rebel without a clue type of situation where I just wanted to be like everything my parents weren't. My parents are actually Ecuadorians, and they're actually legal immigrants, so that's actually really cool. So I relate with Gabriel over there. But this conservative, I don't want to say conservative movement because you guys don't want to, you don't name a party, but this WalkAway movement has actually...
Anti-liberal.
Huh?
Anti-liberal movement.
Anti-liberal, okay, fine, great. It's actually brought me closer to God. It's strange, but it's brought me right back to where I started. My father brought me, my father put me in private school because he knew almost intuitively that the public schools were not good, that they were going to indoctrinate me. He used to say that from an early age. He didn't accept welfare because he said that we don't want to be tied down to the government. And actually, what was ironic was that he was actually a Democrat, strong supporter of Bill Clinton, and it was like, I look back now and I'm like, wait a second, you had these conservative values that you instilled in me and my brother, but yet, anyway, I'm getting away from the question. You get the point. So my main question, and one of the things I struggle most with right now, and I don't think we really touched on it. I think one person in this panel might probably touched on it, was the topic of abortion. Now, when I was younger, I assisted 2 women on an abortion, and ultimately it was because I wanted to escape responsibility. I accept that now. I've forgiven myself for that. I spent a lot of time that burden was on me for such a long time. But now I try to sort of spread that message to other people, try to help them understand that it's not about freedom to choose or women's freedom, whatever you call it, right? It's about you're killing babies, dude. Like, how do you not understand? How do you not understand that you're actually killing children? This is actually falling right into the devil's fucking plan. Excuse my language, guys. So how do we better deliver this message in a way that's not sort of offensive to other women? And by the way, I'm actually token conservative on Twitter. If you guys want to search me up, but I actually call myself token conservative because I'm actually like one of the only conservatives in my group of large liberal friends. This is actually a point of contention with them because they try to convince me. They're like, hey, you have to understand women's rights. You know, you're supposed to be fighting for equality. What are you doing? You're losing your way. And I'm trying to make them understand, no, you guys are lost. You guys are being brainwashed. So how do I deliver that message in a way that's not so contentious and doesn't get them, riled up against me?
So a little bit about that. First and foremost, what you guys need to understand about Roe v. Wade and really the overturn of it is it wouldn't completely ban abortion. It would give the rights of the states to vote, given scientific evidence, back to the states to decide. Now, during that ruling that took place with the Supreme Court, they didn't have the scientific evidence that they have now. Now we know that heartbeat occurs after 16 to 18 days? Even sometimes people say 13. Yeah. I can say that in the beginning, I had more of a libertarian stance on this, and that government should not intervene, and that it really shouldn't be government mandated whether we could ban it. After I took a developmental biology course and really observed literally the developmental process of a chicken, of all things, it was then that I realized that I had made a mistake, but that was through the scientific backings and findings. You have to realize a lot of the people that have those very hardcore liberal mindsets, some of them, if you ask them if they believe in God, they don't. So I don't incorporate God into the argument with these people, especially if they're not religious. I bring in science. I bring in science, and the science standpoint on that is very strong. You can use scientific evidence, but you're not going to break through whether or not you think that these people are murdered by telling someone you're a baby killer. That's the first thing that they do is they shut down. They won't listen to what you have to say. So it's very important that if you actually want to make a difference, that if you want to open someone's mind up, that you bring the scientific evidence and backings for that. Again, you can have life on Mars that's a single-celled organism, but life in the womb, which is multicellular, people will deny time and time again. Bring that up. They don't like that. Bring it up.
And just one more thing, it's just so interesting how there are people that I speak to that they're full-blown vegan and they're all about animal rights and even the eggs, the rights of the egg. And I'm like, are you freaking serious? How can you not?
Well, if it's not fertilized,
which most
eggs aren't, it won't feel anything. So.
But there's such a disconnect there, I guess is my point.
It's part of the propaganda too that they've done. There's like a war on men, as Drew, talked about earlier, but there's also a war on women, and they've kind of, I kind of fell into the trap of this for a little bit, and it's kind of like, it's women's health care. No, it's not. Okay, women's health care, if we know, if you go to the gyno, it's really
it's OBGYN, it's pap smears, it's
not that. It's the year 2019, like you go, when, I hate to be explicit, but like if a guy goes inside of you, right, like when that happens, like it's not that, like it's really easy to get pregnant. And I feel like what they've done is psychologically brainwash us first into thinking that it's healthcare, right? And then secondly, into saying, well, it's best, I think Hillary Clinton maybe like a year ago said it, thanks to abortion. She didn't say any of these words, but we have this many women in the workforce. And it's kind of like, well, it's,
Planned Parenthood makes most of its money off of performing abortions as services. They make money off that way. At the end of the day, it's a corporation, and when you have Hispanic Americans, you have Black Americans, literally the #1 target for that. Well, in my mind, that's eugenics, and I'm not really down for that.
Yeah, it's one in two. It's 1 in 2 abortions, I believe. It's a Black or a Hispanic baby.
Yeah.
So
there are more Black Americans aborted here in New York State than.
And I've heard this, and I've heard this discussion amongst like the African American panels and stuff, and I think Candace Owens is really big on this one. It's like, you bitch and complain about our population, like, oh, there's no more Black representation in here and this and that. It's like, well, maybe you can stop killing your own children, and then, you'd have more Black people to be representing you everywhere else, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing with Hispanics.
Also, education really starts at home. I have a niece who I love to death, and she kept going, well, it's women's rights, it's the women's rights right to choose. And I'm like, she's really young. So I asked her, what exactly is she choosing? And she's like, well, she's choosing to, and she had to say it, to terminate her pregnancy. She's choosing to terminate a human life. And a woman's most sacred calling is motherhood. All right, and I was actually pro-choice when I was younger. And it wasn't until I became pregnant with my first child, my daughter, that the moment that I felt her inside me and the moment that I heard her heartbeat, I fell in love with that child. And I sadly lost her at 18 to 20 weeks. I lost her my second trimester. And I want to think that what I lost wasn't just a clump of cells, because it wasn't. It was a life, a life that was sadly taken away from me through domestic abuse. So I still remember her. You know, I remember her kicking inside me, like the first few times that she kicked inside me, the first time I heard her heartbeat. So I try to educate people and letting them know, what makes someone human? What makes someone human? Having a heart. Having a heart. I was able to hear her heart in just a few weeks. To me, she was a human being. She wasn't a clump of cells. So education really starts at home, and and that's what I'm hoping to help my nieces as they grow older. When these people talk, these feminist movements talk about, oh, pro-choice, it's pro-choice. What choice are they making? The choice of terminating life, playing God. That's the choice that they're making.
Good afternoon, family. My name is Donna, and this is my second WalkAway panel, and I thank you, Brandon Straka. You know.
What was the first?
The LGBTQ community.
Awesome.
And I took pictures with them. I would like to give you a very short story about myself. Not only that I am a recovering Democratic voter, but I'm also a recovering government dependency addict. And a lot of you did answer a lot of my questions, but my biggest question is, how do I reach out to Christians? I'm a born-again Christian, and after a certain amount of years of being filled with the Holy Spirit, you cannot vote for the Democratic Party. It's impossible. It became more and more impossible for me, okay? So my question is, how do I reach out to Christians in the Black and Hispanic community who do go to church, but they had a huge, huge stronghold over government dependency, especially in New York. That is the number one thing that keeping them from voting outside the Democratic Party.
Starts by you going to these events and telling your exact story. Do it on social media, go to the churches. They might not like you at first, but that's not your problem, that's theirs. Keep doing it and you'll find that people will change.
What I would also say is, going back to some of these other questions of how can I get involved, is find someone at your church that thinks the way that you do and start inviting people to your home. Slowly you're gonna start seeing that you guys are growing and growing. Start informing people, start educating. Videos that you like, maybe Brandon Straka, maybe PragerU, maybe Turning Point, whoever it is, share them with people. Just send it to them. Be like, hey, I thought this was really informational. Maybe you'd like to hear it too. And you're gonna start seeing that you yourself have created a movement and gathered people that think like you and want to have the same and be on the same mission as you. And you're gonna slowly start seeing that movement grow larger and larger.
Okay, one more thing. How about the 501c? You ever heard of that?
The church should not be a 501c3 status. That really inhibits them from speaking out, and we need to really work on all legislators overturning that.
I wish I could be here longer, but all right.
You're good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zach. I'm from the Bronx. Shout out to
Zach.
the Bronx. I was going to ask about the Instagram conservative beef that we have going on, but the other gentleman from the Bronx already covered that, which you all beautifully
We
answered
stay out of
as
it.
well. Yes, which I respect and I understand. So I'm just going to give a short testimonial as to why I'm here, why I'm assuming all of us are here as well. I'm a Jewish Hispanic from the Bronx. I'm supposed to be a Democrat or leftist, whatever. New York City public school my entire life, shoved leftist propaganda garbage. Well, they tried to down my throat. Didn't work out. Some of my friends got caught by it, unfortunately. Thank you. But thanks to all your content, also Fog City Midge, I know she's somewhere back there. I show all my friends your stuff and everything, and they are starting to think the right way. So just thank all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
One last thing. I'm going to Marine Officer Candidate School soon, so thank you to Ms.
right.
Awesome, bro.
Anthony and Gabriel for your service and paving a path for someone like me. I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Final question.
Hey, how you guys doing? I want to thank y'all for coming here
truly amazing because a lot of people tend to think that New York State and city is completely liberal. My name's Emmanuel Torres, of Puerto Rican descent, first generation born here, so todavía hablo español. Y le estoy diciendo a la gente que deben de aprender su idioma también. I'm the current chair of the Bronx Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
Hey, good response, good response. So basically, what we're doing now is we geared this up back in 2017 to go into 2018 strong to get a candidate, Larry Sharp, into office to get Cuomo out. Oh, you know about Larry? Wonderful. So, us as libertarians here in New York City and state, we have a lot of conservative views as well. The right to bear arms, little to no taxation if possible.
Yeah.
Kind of in between pro-life and pro-choice, leaning towards pro-life. But understandable, if certain things happen, let's find an alternative, and may abortion be the last resort. So basically, when I was elected to take this position, I went out of my way to get in contact with more than anybody, Republicans, because the current, well, not the current, but the previous candidate, Mark Molinaro, and his, what's the correct term for it? His, like, the woman that would be with him, his co-governor? Lieutenant governor, yes, there we go. They were in favor of red flag laws for the Second Amendment, and they were not defending our First Amendment. They were leaning Democrats, saying, oh yeah, you should watch what you say, given we do have to be polite, but at the same time, nobody's rights should be infringed nor censored. They were in favor of all of that. So I reached out to Montaga. Montaga, no disrespect to him, wonderful man, but he really wouldn't give me that much time. And I still try to get in contact with him to this day. He's still not trying to hear it. So I attended the Second Amendment rally last Saturday down in DC, and I spoke to the guy who was involved in Heller versus DC, and he told me about this event today. He was like, go over there, let these people know what's going on, see what kind of support you guys could get for 2022, because they all love Larry. So, being that Montaga did not grant me any time to be heard out. Again, no disrespect to him, wonderful man, and we do support him as well. Not endorsing him, just saying we support him, but with you guys, being that this state is probably the most infringed state, is horrible to say.
You guys can't even have pepper spray.
Exactly. Wow. I gave my mother, I'm from the Bronx, off of Kingsbridge and Fordham, and y'all know at nighttime, outside is nothing but gang members. Are there gang members who are good people? Yes. But does there need to be more of safety and self-defense in this state? Hell yes. So I ask you guys today, is there any possibility you could let the rest of the Republican Party know as to where my people and I were exiled, that if we would try to go to these Republican events, oh, are you guys registered Republicans? We're not, no, not let in. It's like, damn.
You guys need to just show up. You guys, and I can say this, I am a Republican, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that WalkAway is Republican. I'm just saying I personally, independent, I'm a Republican. You need to just show up to the events. A lot of times there's a lot that's lost in translation with big parties, big movements, especially right now in an election cycle. So by you just making your voice known, show up, wear a nice suit and tie, walk the walk, talk the talk, and you'll get in there and listen. But absolutely, he is correct. The red flag laws, especially with veterans, they label any mental health condition. Post-traumatic stress disorder is considered, according to the American Psychiatric Association, a mental health condition. That means if you are a veteran, you cannot receive, one, care for PTSD, and two, that you are now on the red flag laws. That is not constitutional. We should not be putting that forth. And any candidate, Democrat or Republican, that's going to push for that is not a candidate that's fighting for the American people.
Yes, exactly.
Gabriel. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So here's what I want to say. I went to FECON in Atlanta this past year, and I was a conservative going into a very libertarian threshold. I felt like kind of like how you felt. I was like, damn, these guys bash Republicans more than Democrats do sometimes. But what wound up happening was I realized that, hey, we can agree on a lot.
A lot.
And what's necessary, and because the libertarian presence isn't so strong here, especially in New York, what I think is necessary is that the libertarians should work with the conservatives and Republicans, find that common ground, and even, Reagan read books by Ayn Rand, by Milton Friedman, by libertarian forward thinkers. And that's how I was first brought into libertarianism and conservatism. So if you are able to educate people and go to candidates and even give them Anthem by Ayn Rand, that's how I started. Even if you give them that book and say, read it, or iPencil, you will then start a conversation. That's what all this has been about. And if you can start with a conversation, listen, I'm willing to work with you on this.
Yes. That's why my immediate question was, can I ask for all of y'all assistance? Anna, let me tell you, when girls tell me I do not feel that I could trust myself, this is women talking, that they do not feel that they could trust themselves carrying a firearm, I always let them know, hey, you have this woman here who's a Hispanic, that she's pro Second Amendment. The safety of women, when I see girls at night, when I'm driving around or walking, all I'm thinking is, God, let her get home safe. I don't know where she was or where she is going, but just get home safe. How you said, when we try to engage these conversations with the conservatives here, I can only speak for New York, they're not trying to hear us. So I'm asking you guys, if possible, not obligated, you don't have to, if you guys, since you have the platform, can let your fellow conservatives know. In New York, for 2022, they are gearing up a candidate who is libertarian on paper but has a lot of conservative values, Larry Sharpe. Can you please give the New Yorkers a chance to speak? That's all I ask.
Before we close out, I'm going to have everyone go one by one and let you know how you can follow them on social media, support everybody on this panel, support their cause. I just want to quickly say thank you all so much for coming out to the first WalkAway Hispanic American Town Hall. It will not be the last. Yes, I know. I got you. I just want to read this note that my team passed to me while I was on stage. They love to pass me notes while I'm on stage. It says, just had someone walk away from Dems, registered to vote as Republican. So please, how you choose to affiliate is totally up to you, but please know that we do have voter registration outside. If you're not registered to vote, please register to vote. If you'd like to change your voter registration, we can take care of that right there. The panelists, I believe, will be available. I'll certainly be available to take pictures over here if you'd like to take pictures. And why doesn't everyone tell everyone how they can find you on social media?
I need your guys' help. That's all I'm going to say. So you guys can find information about me, what I'm doing on my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at RealAnnaPaulina. Go ahead and don't be fiscally conservative. You know what I mean?
Very well done. That was good.
You guys can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube,
He plugged TikTok.
Facebook, at Lives Matter Official. Follow our organization, bienvenido.us on Instagram. And at the end of the day, guys, Christ Jesus is King. He's the one we put our hope in. The gospel saves and heals all these issues. The issue of murder, abortion, hypersexualization of the culture. The gospel addresses every single one. If we put our faith in Him, repent of our sins, and lay down our hearts and our lives to Him, He will heal our hearts and He will heal this land. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Drew.
You can find me on Facebook, The Conservative Latina. I should pop right up. And on Twitter, The Conservative Latina. I haven't been banned from there yet. But I know they've been threatening to get me out of there. And on Instagram, conservative_Latina45.
For myself, you can find me. Instagram is my largest following. It'll just be conservative.latino. And then on Facebook and Twitter, it'll just be conservative Latino. And then if you're from California or you wish to work with our organization, RNHA, please speak to either him and I. If you're in California, RNHA, talk to me. And then from New York, I talk to him.
So you guys can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Wake Up with Linda. No Twitter anymore, sadly.
For me, all you have to look up on Instagram, Facebook, and my very inactive Twitter, Baron, B-A-R-O-N, Montalvo. And we, and here with the New York Republican National Hispanic Assembly, are looking to kick off our New York State first ever New Year, new RNHA event here in Queens. That's where we're going to put our official headquarters. More information will be given afterwards. And thank you guys very much. I hope to do more town halls with the Hispanic movement over here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
one last thing.
Thank you, Brandon.
One more thing, I'm sorry. Please go to walkawaycampaign.com if you love what we're doing. Support us, donate. We're a grassroots organization. In order for us to do events like this, we need your help. So please do that. And I forgot to mention that through the success and popularity of WalkAway, which we've been so blessed, it was a couple of our volunteers, Sylvia and Vivian, who's right here. I didn't even finish my sentence. A couple volunteers came to me and they said, you know, we really need to be doing outreach for people in this country who don't yet speak English. And so we have created WalkAway Espanol. Please know that this is available online. You can join the group. Everything is translated into Spanish because we're trying to reach people where they are. And could you please make an announcement about that, Vivian?
Para todos los interesados en el habla español, tenemos WalkAway Español. También tenemos WalkAway Puerto Rico, for those interested as well. Por favor, si quieren unirse para tener más información local y cómo envolverse con su comunidad hispana en habla español, vean nosotros en Facebook.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
Take pictures.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like it and share it with all of your friends. And please subscribe to our channel by clicking this button here.